Okay, so welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number
66.
66. And I don't remember what my wife titled it, but I know what I titled it. It's like, how do you pick yourself up after failures?
The title is How to Swim even when the current is totally against you. How to swim and thrive even when the current is totally against you.
Not too far.
Go ahead.
I mean, it is the 9 days. We have entered the 9 days. And started at the beginning of Av, and the last will be Sunday, which with Tisha B'Av. And this is, of course, the saddest period in the Jewish calendar, and many calamities and terrible things happen to the Jews. And it's not, even says that you're supposed to, if you have a court case with a non-Jew, you should push it off till after this because our mazel is not great right now. So, doesn't sound so happy. But actually, the Rebbe said an interesting thing. He said he was once giving a Farbrengen during this period of time. And he says, it's a Farbrengen is a joyous occasion because everybody gets together. Words of Torah said it inspires a person. And he was trying to figure out, how am I allowed to do this during the 9 days? And he said, but that's how Hasidim look at it. It's that you decrease, but you decrease in simcha. It means that you continue to have joy because you have to serve Hashem with joy. And he brought an interesting rule for himself. He said, musicians also, they're not something you don't listen to music during these 9 days. But musicians have to practice every day since it's their profession. So he says, since I'm a professional speaker for Briggins, therefore, I guess I'm allowed to also give, halakhically, I'm allowed to also speak for Briggins. Yeah, I told you to read that sheet. That was very interesting. Everybody enjoyed that very much. So that was...
did you say the Rebbe was saying this?
Yeah, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Yeah. So here it is. This is our class, and this is our profession, and we have to continue. And so we're going to talk a little bit.
Excuse me. We have a great class, so just stay tuned.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we have to get that preview in. So I think we do have a good class. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the paradoxes, how Jews look at tragedies and difficulties and failures and how we recover from them. We certainly know a lot about that in the course of our history, but it's interesting how we view it as opposed to what many people would just view it as a terrible, completely black and dark. And that's not the way Jews viewed the situation. So the first is based on a story. One of the Medrash brings down a story about this time of year. Says that when the temple was, the year that the temple was destroyed, there was once a Jewish farmer up in the Galil. That's a number of days of travel away from Jerusalem. So he didn't know about the destruction of the temple, and he was busy plowing his field. And an Arab, the cow gave out the ox gave out I don't know, it's not a moo, but whatever an ox gives out as a sound. A low, okay, whatever a low sounds like. Maybe you want to illustrate what a low sounds like? No. Well, I think we did have that happen once, right? Remember, we were driving and we had this bull, gave us the was not happy with us where we were driving and gave us a big sound. So anyway, the ox gives out a low. And the Arab says, you got to stop plowing to the Jew. He says, because your temple was just destroyed. So the Jew stopped. And then the ox gave out another low, and the Arab said, okay, you can start plowing again. The Mashiach, your Mashiach has been born. The temple is going to be rebuilt. The temple is going to be restored because Mashiach has already arrived in the world. And the rabbis all have a question with this because it's been 2,000 years since then, and we haven't really seen this situation turn around. So, and it's interesting that one of the reasons on the afternoon of Tisha B'Av that we read Nachem, comfort, the Jews, is because we believe that Tisha B'Av is the birthday of Mashiach, And that ultimately Tisha B'Av is turning around. Turner is the whole idea of Tisha B'Av is not to be only a sad day, but ultimately to be happy. We have to understand this contradiction. It's a paradox. What is it, bad or is it good? Is it the birth of something positive or is it something sad? There's another story. I want to give three illustrations of this, and then I'll explain the idea. So the second one comes from the Medrash on the prophet Yirmiyahu. And it says that in the year that the temple was destroyed, there came the lion, Ari, and the month of the Ari, which is the month of Av, and he destroyed the Ariel, which is the temple. All the words are based on the word Ari, which means lion. The lion came in the month of the lion and destroyed the lion. And then it says, in order why? So that the Ari should come. In the month of the Ari, of the month of the lion, and rebuild the temple, the Ariel. And it just seems like it's a cute little rhyme, but what's the idea? Are we just talking about the destruction of the temple? Or are we just talking about the creation of the temple? The lion is referring literally to Nebuchadnezzar, who was compared to a roaring lion, and he destroyed the temple, which was the Ariel, in the month of Ari, which is the month of Av. So what's this thing about talking about the lion coming and rebuilding it? And the third question is, we know that everything that God commands the Jews to do, God does himself. So one of the laws about the temple is that you are not allowed to grab a souvenir of it. You go to the kosel, you can't take out a little hammer and take a little piece of the stone home with you. You can't take anything from the Har HaBayis home from you, not even the slightest bit of dirt or anything else. We don't take souvenirs from the temple. We don't destroy any piece of it. That is a very severe, it's considered like the destruction of the temple. Now, if that's the case, then how did God destroy the temple? It's his house, and he destroyed it. He destroyed it. He burnt it, and he had we exiled. So how can God do this? All right, with those three questions, we'll try and understand this whole idea, this whole month, and how we deal with disasters and tragedies in our lives, and how the Jews have always managed to overcome this idea. And the basic idea is as follows, that I mentioned that it's not allowed to take any piece of the temple. It's actually also, you are not allowed to destroy any temple, any synagogue. You can't just go and sell it, all the Jews moved away and nobody's there anymore, and just destroy it and build something new there and so forth. The holiness of a temple, of a house of worship, of Jewish synagogue, is intrinsic, and you're not allowed to destroy it at all. You're not allowed to destroy anything of it and to remove anything of it. It's a big tragedy when the Jews move away and then there's nobody there to take care of a synagogue. And then many times, like you saw in the North End, not in the North End, in the old Beacon Hill, there was a temple there, and the Jews all moved away because it's too expensive. And there was a whole campaign to try and restore it and purchase it. And I think I believe they did. It's still there. It's still functioning. I don't know if anybody goes there. It's set up as a museum or something like that, but you're not allowed to destroy a temple.
Well, there is a temple in Toledo, Spain. There was a temple there. Mm-hmm. And it's like the remnants of it now. I don't know if they use it for anything else or not. And that must be true in parts of the world.
But there is one caveat about this. That is, you are allowed to destroy it if you're going to rebuild it and make it and remodel it and make it something better. In that case, you are allowed to do. And that interesting law is the whole secret to Jewish survival. You can either look at something as a tragedy, or you can look at it as the springboard for something better. There's two ways that we can deal with terrible things that happen. People get married and they're very excited and they're happy with each other. And then all of a sudden the boredom and the it fits in, and then you see some other things go wrong and other things in relationships. You're raising a child and you're wondering, where did all this chutzpah come from and so forth. I thought this was my nice little cute child, and all of a sudden they're fighting with me and arguing with me. What happened? And so forth. And you can either look at it and say, you know what, I was really destined for this. this. My life was always planned to be a failure and so forth. I always knew that I was, I never really could do this thing. I always knew that, I was doomed for failure and so forth. It was too good to be true. It was too happy. I am, especially religious Jews, because then they think, you know what, I really deserve this. God hates me. And he really doesn't like me, and I'm and it's for good reasons. I really am guilty, and I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve to have my head pounded, and I deserve this stuff. That is one way to look at disasters, and we're pretty good at doing that sometimes. We can. The other way to look at it is, it's true. It might be true. It might look externally true, but really, it's just like that person who had a job. And the boss told him, you have to move on because the company's failing and you're the one, and we have to get rid of you and so forth. That could be also an opportunity that really you're supposed to do something bigger because you are talented and you have all sorts of capabilities. And therefore, it's time now. You've learned so much from the previous job and you're supposed to go on to do something bigger. So in Judaism, we always look at it as whatever is going wrong. We may not see what the story is, but when one door closes, when one window closes, it really is an invitation from God to tell you, you know what, something else is opening up. And that is the business of the story of why the lion comes in the month of the Ari, but he comes later to rebuild it. We always look at it as a revolving door. Whatever happens, whatever closes is actually a springboard for something better to happen. The same thing with the ox that's lowing, and the same thing with what was the other one, when God destroying his own building and so forth. Every disaster is always viewed as something that's ultimately positive. There's an interesting story that also goes with this time of the year. It says that when the Babylonians came into the temple, I think it was also even when Titus came into the temple. They looked at the temple and they looked in and they went into the Holy of Holies. And let me do a screen share here. Esther's here. Okay. Oh, I haven't done the share yet. Okay. And they saw they went into the Holy of Holies, which only the Kohen Gadol was allowed into. And in there was the ark. And as you can see in the ark, there are these staves. There is the box of the Aron, where inside where the luchos, the tablets were, and the 10 Commandments. And on the top, there are these two cherubim. Cherubim, I think, is how they pronounce it in English. In Hebrew, we call it cherubim. And they were childlike faces, childlike bodies, and they had wings. And the Medrash continues, and it explains that when God is mad at the Jews, they don't face each other. But when he's happy, they do face each other with the Jews. And when the Babylonians went into the temple, they saw not only were they facing each other, but they were hugging each other. And they said, so this is what the Jews worship, it's not modest, I mean, this is what the Jews, they're sitting there hugging each other. But the question is, if God is happy with the Jews, why are they hugging? Why is he? And he's destroying his temple. Why are they hugging each other? So it's an interesting law. It says that when a husband goes away on a business trip, that night, before he leaves, he's supposed to be intimate with his wife because he's going away, and they have to be a sign of affection. So this was also God's way of saying, I'm going to be with you. I might be going away on a business trip. You're not going to be in the temple. We're not going to be together for a while. But I don't think that the relationship is finished here. The relationship is very much here. And the reason is I'm giving you a sign of that. And that is that we really are very intimate and we are very close. And I really only am doing this destruction of the temple for one reason, and that is because eventually, in order so it should be built up bigger, that this is going to be an improvement. It's just going to take a while for that to happen. Why has it been taking 2,000 years of Gullus? That we don't understand. But that ultimately this is going to turn out that the world is what we have accomplished, what we accomplished today. The activities that we do today is brick by brick by brick, rebuilding the spiritual temple, which ultimately will also be the physical temple. Another cute story that I think also very much illustrates this idea is, I don't know if you ever heard the story of the chemist who worked at a big chemical company in Minnesota, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. And he was trying to develop the most powerful, perfect glue. And he worked a long time trying to develop this kind of glue. And he made that glue. And he found out that he tried it out on a piece of paper, and it didn't stick very well at all. And most people would probably say, it's a failure, years of work, and I should just throw it in, and so forth. But you know what? It was an interesting story. He actually was a religious Christian. He worked, and he was trying to figure out, this must be good for something. But what do you do with a glue that doesn't stick very well? And so one day he was at his choir practice, and he noticed that, they had all these prayer books, and they had all these papers, and they were always falling out. And he realized, that would be great if I just had this glue that sort of sticks and doesn't stick. And the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing means 3M, Minnesota Manufacturing. And he was the inventor of Post-it notes. And Post-it notes, here's an advertisement, Post-it notes. Of course, he became a millionaire, and he was set for life at his company. And that's the story of Post-it notes. It was a glue that he was recognized as a fantastic chemist. This is the story of Jewish history, in effect, that we always take what is lemons and turn it into lemonade. We realize that ultimately there's a good God behind everything that's terrible that's happening to us. Do we feel it? Do we feel the texture of the pain? Yes, we do. Do we mourn on Tisha B'Av? Yes, we mourn on Tisha B'Av. But ultimately, we know that the inner message of Tisha B'Av, the inner message of the 9 days, is not to wallow in our pain and our problems. The ultimate message is this is supposed to be a springboard and a catalyst, a door opening, and for something greater. And when we look at things that way, then we actually help transform the situation, because just sitting there and blaming ourselves is not accomplishing anything. And in fact, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you think that it's terrible, it really gets worse and worse and worse. So yes, Jews still like the kvetch. I'm not saying that we don't like the kvetch. Whenever we get together, we usually talk about, this person is sick and that happened to you, and I'm getting older and the kids are not, and this and that. And what's the story with the 4 Jewish women down in Miami once? The first one goes, oi. The second one goes, oi vey. The third one goes, oi vey smear. And the fourth one goes, I thought we agreed not to talk about the children. So yeah, this is part of what we are. This is part of what it's all about. But it's also the other part of the story is too, that the remarkable resilience of the Jews, and that we keep coming back and back and back over and again. And when there's horrific things that happen, and there are stabbings at the synagogue, and there's blood, and there's all sorts of other things, and there's quarters, we always look at it as, wow, this must be an opportunity for something good. And in fact, that's what's happening. I mean, people are flocking, to the summer camp and to the school, and they're raising money, and they're going to build a yeshiva, and they're going to teach rabbis, and it's going to be, you attack one rabbi, we'll show you. We're going to have a school. We're going to put out rabbis after rabbis after rabbis, It's
Is that what they're doing?
Yes, they said they're going to make a smicha program for ordaining new rabbis, and Rabbi Naginsky is going to be in charge of it. And they've already gotten well along into raising the money for the building and for the, so forth. And this is what we're going to do. This is how Jews respond to any negative activity. So, people look at us and, we don't riot, we don't destroy, we don't, burn. And for nobody would listen to us anyway, if we did.
Where will it be?
Somewhere in the neighborhood here around this area. So
Really?
That's the idea. So hopefully that will take off. There is a website, and they are collecting money. It's a charity.com with a D, charity. If you want, I can tell you where the link is and so forth. But that's what we're doing. That's how we respond to anything that's negative. And I think that's the message of Tisha B'Av, the message of Jewish resilience, and the message of our eternality. And I'll try and speak about that again. Till Monday, because Sunday I won't have a lot of time to prepare. It'll be Tisha B'Av, but anyway, I'm wishing everybody a joyous Tisha B'Av, especially those people who are born on Tisha B'Av. We know a couple of them, and they don't get ever to celebrate their birthday. But this year, hopefully, though, we will be able to celebrate their birthday with lots of birthday cakes and a lot of celebration. Amen, amen,
Well,
amen.
when would they do it? The next day?
I guess so. What is
No.
Mr. Leah?
I didn't know.
I
No,
did.
Esther Marchette. Esther Marchette is one person we know. You probably know her. Her birthday is on Tisha B'Av. You can ask her what she does.
Well, that's this year. This year
Every
it's
year.
on Tisha.
Every year.
Every year it's on Tisha B'Av. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I was wondering because my birthday is in this month too of Av, and I wondered if it's mine is the first of Av, and I wondered if is there anything? I mean, is it a sad time to have a birthday, or is it still a good? I mean,
So wonderful.
people born.
It's wonderful.
So they also asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe because he was very big about birthdays, but you want to talk about it? You saw what it is? Okay, fine. So I'm going to turn over the camera to my wife, and she's going to speak for the, she says she has something fantastic to share. So I'm sure she will outshine me. So let's.
Okay, thank you, Yecheskel Shimon.
This was useful.
Thank you so much.
Yecheskel Shimon?
Yes.
Were those the actual, the cherubim? Cherubim, where they were
what was
is that a rendering of what
Indiana Jones was looking for the ark and so forth? You believe that?
No. I mean, but is it a rendering of what they really look like, or is it sort of an idea?
We don't know exactly. There was no
size and dimensions. We know, okay, because that's explicitly put in the temple. We also know there's something called cherubim on top. But the actual form, we know it was made out of gold, but actually what the decorations were, what the, and where the poles exactly were and so forth.
Right.
Nobody really knows. This is all artistic license. So they tried to do the best they could based on whatever information they had.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
So nice.
So, first of all, hello, everybody. It's always good to see everybody. Hello, Molly. Hello, Esther. Hello, Sari. Hello, Devorah. Hello, everybody else. Does anybody want to say anything before I begin?
Well, my only question was about like when you're born in the month of Av.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the character of the 3 weeks. What is it a bad time? Is it what is it?
Or does it affect the character of the person who's born in that month?
It's a very, very special. Does it affect?
Does it affect the character or the way their life goes? No.
It's not a time. No, it doesn't mean that you have less mazel in your life, and it doesn't mean anything like that. The Arizal. Oh wait, no, that was his yard site. Believe me, great people are born in this time and they have great lives. I've never seen anything. There's no negative association with being born in this time. The only negative association is that some people get less birthday cake, but that's it. And it's going to, I'll skip ahead and I'll tell you, it's going to be the best time of all. This most difficult time is going to be transformed into the best time of all. So anyway, I'm going to begin if nobody else has any other questions. And I'll start out by saying that, we are in an extraordinary time. We're in a magnificent time, and not a terrifying time, an exciting time. There was a book a long time ago. You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought. I don't know if anybody ever saw it. It came out years ago. I think it came out in response to the AIDS epidemic. And it was a really good book about how to think positively. And the author made an excellent point. And the point is that fear and excitement are the exact same physiological feeling, the exact same feeling. It just depends on how you interpret it. And so too, this time is full of things that have people on the edge of their seat. I have never seen such a, in my life, I've never seen such an eventful 3 weeks, where we had the Surfside, and we had And personally, my friends, some of them have terrible things that have been happening to them, are very not terrible, but very worrisome things. And then my own coworker was stabbed, when he was sitting on the stairs of my school. Yeah. And he was saved by a tremendous miracle. This guy had both a gun and a knife, and he chased the rabbi ran away from the school to direct him away from the school, and the guy who was approximately half his age chased him, kept on chasing him and stabbing him. He attempted to stab him more than 100 times, but thank God only 8 were successful. And thank God the rabbi deflected them all so that they didn't hit, his vital organs. So anyway, he's doing fine.
Hashem.
He's doing absolutely fine. He just went down to Washington for the rally and spoke beautifully with tremendous composure. Just an impressive person. Can you imagine? He took a 15-hour bus. How long is it down to from Boston to? It's got to be at least 7.5 hours. He went 15 hours on a bus in one day. He's doing okay.
Oh my God! He went there and came back.
Yes. Rabbi Redkin with him and his brother with him, and and he spoke with beautiful composure. So anyway, we have to know that the inner character of this time is an extraordinary time, that we are here for a purpose. We were handpicked to be in this time, that Hashem gave us the tools to navigate it. We have all the tools that we need. We have the leaders that we need. The Rebbe explained this time to a T, and tonight we are advancing the process of the redemption. The Rebbe told us that in 1992, he told us that the Jewish people have, not Jewish people only, the Jewish people in the world have entered the era of the redemption, the days of Mashiach. And the Rebbe hinted broadly many times that he himself is Mashiach. He himself is Mashiach. And that, and he even said that the grave, if such a thing happens, the grave will have no effect on him. Will have no effect on the leader.
Born on Tisha B'Av?
Not born on Tisha B'Av. That's considered to be a. It's considered to be a.
He was born in Nisan.
He was born in Nisan. It's considered to be not birth literally, but somehow the energy of Mashiach happened. It was given birth to. It was birthed at this time on Tisha B'Av. So anyway, I want to go straight into a little bit a word about fear, because there's just been so much, so much for so many people. So many things have been happening, and you have to have. I don't know about you guys, but I have a bunch of I have a bag with a bunch of tricks. When I have a tool bag, and I have quite a number of tools, and I just invented another one, because so many things have been happening to my friends, to myself personally, to everything, to my school. It's just crazy, and so much division and divisiveness and all that kind of stuff, and also when something happens to you personally, when something happens globally, it's very painful for all of us. The Jews are like one person, so if something happens to another Jew, you feel it with you. It affects each Jew, even if we aren't aware of it. It affects each Jew. I remember I was told a while back there was somebody that is not really in the forefront of my mind. I know him, but not extraordinarily well. He's not part of my close circle. But when somebody told me that he was eating matzah on Pesach, I burst into tears. I burst into tears of relief. And I didn't even know that the pain that this person is far away from Torah and mitzvos was so deep in me. And when I heard the good news, it was like, oh, it's so wonderful. So, we carry pain about a lot of things that we don't even allow ourselves to feel on a day-to-day basis.
You know what? Could I just say about that,
Yes.
Shalama, sometimes I think that feeling that you had comes from that you're really feeling for Hashem, that this person has been distanced from him, and that it's a relief that you're feeling for Hashem that this person has come back.
I think that you're right. And I want
In
to
a
say
way.
that we carry Hashem's pain inside of us too. And I know that because I told the story once before that many, many years ago on Tisha B'Av, no, Tisha B'Av, on Yom Kippur, they're compared to each other. But many years ago on Yom Kippur, when my shul, before Sheila House existed, when we were davening when our synagogue was davening in the basement of B'nai Moshe in Brighton, I had heard a lot about Ne'ilah, right? That in Ne'ilah, the most inner part of your soul can come to the surface, and the Yechida. And I also knew in an abstract way, I mean, I also had heard that when you picture the face of a tzaddik, your Yechida, the innermost part of your soul that you are not in touch with at all 365 days of the year, 364 days of the year. But on Yom Kippur at Ne'ilah, you can be in touch with it. So whatever, I told this story before, but like a kid doing a scientific experiment, I wonder what would happen if during the time of Ne'ilah, when you can access the innermost part of your neshama, I wonder what would happen if I also picture the Rebbe at the same time. Wow. Because if you picture a big tzaddik, a big holy person, it can also yank your yechida up to the surface. So in a very calculating little experiment, here we are in Ne'ilah. Ne'ilah began, and I'm davening, and I purposefully pictured the Rebbe in my mind. And all of a sudden, I started sobbing from my toes up. I was sobbing incredibly, and I heard the words that came out of my mouth. The words that came out of my mouth were, Hashem, you don't even have 4 walls to call your own. And I was crying hysterically over the destruction of the temple. This is not a feeling that I have on your normal Tuesday. This is not a feeling I ever had in my life before. But those are the feelings that we have inside of us. Those are the feelings that we have inside of us. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit about this time here, the 3 weeks, and the 3 weeks are in their external form. The 3 weeks from the 17th of Tammuz until Tisha B'Av, which is this coming Sunday. Those 3 weeks in their outer nature are a time of calamity, the greatest calamity. But we're taught that these days are going to be, when we can see Mashiach, they're going to be the highest time of all. Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, they will not be able to compare to these days, to your birthday, Molly. They'll not be able to compare to these 3 weeks. And so our job is to reveal the inner nature of this time. Just like when we have any calamity that happens to us, our job is to reveal the inner core, to look for God in the calamity. And when you find God, you have done a tremendous thing. When you find God in your own calamity. This time of year also coincides with the time when the sun is at its brightest. And our sages tell us that means that's a metaphor, but Hashem did it on purpose because he wants us to know that just like the sun is at its brightest, Hashem's love is pouring down at this time more than at any other time of year. So, so our job during this time is to learn about the Beis HaMikdash, to learn about the temple, to yearn for it. And this Shabbos, you and I and every other Jew on the face of this earth will have a subliminal vision of the third temple, what the third temple is going to be like. Hashem gives that as a present to us so that in our inner core, we will yearn for it more. So
Does it happen every
Tisha B'Av? We are shown, wait a minute, no, excuse me, the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, not Tisha B'Av. This Shabbos is going to happen.
Right.
You are going to have a subliminal vision of the third temple. And yeah, it happens. It's called Shabbat Chazon. It means the Shabbos of the vision, and every Jew gets it. So, okay, good. Now I'm going to tell you. The title of this piece was this session is how to swim, how to swim and thrive when the current is going totally against you. So I want to tell you about a little science experiment that was done back in 1957 by a scientist called Carl Richter, and it was done during a time when there was less concern about animal cruelty. So you might be surprised at what he did, but it's still very, very interesting, the lesson he got from it. He wanted to see how long rats can swim before they give up and drown. So first he compared, he had like fish bowls, and he took a rat and he put it into each one, and he measured how long they could tread water for until they gave up and drowned. And first the first thing he found out was that domesticated rats swim better or swim longer than wild rats. And now these were both Norwegian rats. They were the exact same gene type, the exact same biological stock, but some had been taken from the wild and domesticated. And the domesticated ones swam for much longer than the wild ones. And he was like shocked, because you would think it would be the opposite. You would think the wild ones would be the stronger ones. But he quickly surmised that it might have something to do with psychologically giving up, that the experience of having been nurtured in your life, even a little bit, enables a person to keep going longer. So he refined his experiment, and he took the wild rats and he put them in the water. And the wild rats in general swam an average of 15 minutes before they gave up and started to drown. And so what he did was, before they gave up and started to drown, when they were at the point of giving up and starting to drown, he would take the rat out and, put him down and, take care of him a little bit, and then put him back in. And what do you think happened the second time? The first time, the wild rats were able, they were able to swim for 15 minutes. What do you think happened the second time? After he took them out, took care of them a little bit, it took them out, gave them a rest, and then put them back in. A little rest, not a long rest. How long do you think they were able to swim the second time? The first time was 15 minutes. What do you think the second time?
A half hour?
It's an interesting guess. Esther, you having a guess?
17 minutes.
Yeah, I guessed 16 minutes. And the answer is, okay, the first time was 15 minutes. The second time was 60 hours. 60
hours.
240 times the amount of time they did the first time without giving up. And so the lesson we learn from this is, if a person sees a hand of kindness in their life, if a person sees, like, for example, for me, the potent lesson is, how many times has God saved me from calamity? How many times? How many times? An amazing amount of times. That itself, the fact that you have a history that God saved you, that God rescued you in some situation, gives a person a tremendous ability to stand up to future challenge if they use it. It gives them a tremendous ability. And it worked with rats, and it works with people. I do it to myself all the time. I say, Shlomis Yehudis, how many times does Hashem have to show you that he is in your life and he is taking care of you? How many times? And it brings me back to sanity. So anyway, the way to thrive when the current is totally against you is to remember that you are not alone, and that you have a potent force that is helping you. So I want to go from there to a story, and I'm going to conclude with a story. I think it's a great story. So, story is about a Chabad rabbi in France named Beryl Pashtar. His name is Pashtar. And Beryl lives in France. He works at the yeshiva in Brunei. There's a big Chabad yeshiva in France, a famous place. And he had a family wedding in Israel. So his whole family flew from France to Israel for the wedding. And they had the wedding. And then he brought his family up north because he and his wife are hooked on the north of Israel. They're hooked on the scenery there. It's so beautiful. The streams, the mountains. It's just a very beautiful place. And they were going to spend the rest of their 10-day stay up there. But one of their sons had to go back to France early because his yeshiva was starting and he couldn't miss that much yeshiva. So he went, his flight was on a Monday, and on Sunday he already left the north and he went down to Kfar Chabad, which is where they had relatives in Kfar Chabad. Kfar Chabad happens to be right next to the airport, like right next to the airport. It's a good place to be if you have to go to the airport because you can just get there in a few minutes. And on Monday morning, the next morning when he's in Kfar Chabad, he calls his parents and he says, "Bad news. I forgot my passport. My passport is with you guys." And they didn't know what to do. The parents did not particularly want to go down from where they were in the north down to the airport or down to Kfar Chabad because they only had a couple of days left, and that would mean that it wouldn't be worth it to go back up again and back down again. It just wouldn't be worth it. But they didn't see any other alternative. But then one of their relatives came up with a good plan, and they said there's a train from Kfar Chabad straight to Akko. Akko is in the north of Israel. It's a Jewish Arab town. And your kid can take the train up north. You just have to go a little way to Akko, give him the passport, then he'll come back down and he has time to make it for the flight. So they said, great, we'll do that. And the parents on Monday morning, they drove to Akko. And all the time that the shliach from France was driving to Akko, he was thinking, we didn't plan to go to Akko. And the Baal Shem Tov told us, he taught that if a person ends up in a place where they didn't plan to go, there's usually a godly reason that brought them there. What could be the reason that I'm supposed to be in Akko? Okay, I got to give the passport to my kid, but there's got to be another reason. Anyway, he also had this custom that when he would go to a new city that he'd never been to before, he would call the Chabad emissary in that city just to say Shalom Aleichem. And so that's what he did. He met the kid at the airport. He gave him the passport. The kid went back to load the airport and made it for his flight. But anyway, the shliach decides he's going to daven the morning service, Shacharis, at the Chabad house. Why not? And he went to the Chabad house in Akko, gave the Shalom Aleichem to the rabbi there. And it was a typical Chabad house. People were streaming in and out. The phone was ringing nonstop, just like every other Chabad house. And the rabbi davened. And at the end of the davening, when he took off his tefillin, all of a sudden it hit him. I know why I'm in Akko. I figured it out. And he remembered that he remembered a story. There's a Chabad emissary in Israel who deals with French-speaking Jews who happen to be in Israel. And this emissary from Israel would call Rabbi Pashtar, because he's from France, to ask him questions about French culture, or to maybe ask him to follow up with some people that he met who were vacationing in Israel. They had a lively correspondence. And they were both big Chabadniks, meaning they both felt strongly. They believed what the Rebbe said, that the Geula is unfolding, the redemption of the world is unfolding, and that the Rebbe hinted so many times that the Rebbe himself is Mashiach. But the one in Israel, unlike the one in France, never told the people who came to his Chabad house, he never said that the Rebbe is Mashiach because he thought it's not going to be received well. They're not going to believe me. They're going to think I'm off the dip. I'm a wild guy. I'm not going to say it. And the one in France kept saying, this is what you're supposed to do. Why don't you do it? So the one in France, Rabbi Pashtar, said, I have an idea for you. You drive back and forth in Israel, long trips, and you pick up hitchhikers. Why don't you download the classes of Rabbi Chaim Levi Yitzchak Ginsburg, Alav Shalom. He's not alive anymore. He has incredible classes about Mashiach and Geula, about the Rebbe being Mashiach, incredible classes. You listen to them in the car, and when you pick up hitchhikers, well, they'll hear about the Rebbe being Mashiach. And in that way, you will have done your job of informing the world about Mashiach. So the rabbi in Israel said, fine, I'm going to do that. That's a good idea. And 6 months later, the rabbi in Israel calls Rabbi Pashtar when he was in France. And he said, you won't believe it. It's true. It's true. The world is ready to hear that the Rebbe is Mashiach. And Rabbi Pashtar said, yeah, what happened? He said, well, I picked up 3 hitchhikers and I was playing a tape by Rabbi Ginsburg. And it was all about Mashiach and the Rebbe. And at first, these were religious kids, but not Chabadniks. And at first I thought, I'm going to turn off the tape. I don't want to get into any arguments. And then he said, no, this is what I'm doing. I talked about it with our Pashtar. I'm going to play the tape. So he played the tape. And 2 of the kids had to get out early on. They only needed to travel a little bit, but the 3rd one went all the way into Jerusalem with the rabbi. And the tape went on for an hour and a half. And at the end of the tape, the yeshiva boy, not a Chabadnik, a yeshiva boy in the back said, he was astounded about how clear and amazing the class was, astounded. And the yeshiva boy said, now it's my turn to tell you a story. And he said, when, those 2 guys that you let off early in the trip, the 3 of us once took a road trip to Akko in the north of Israel. And while we were there, we met an Arab. And this Arab was super friendly. And he told us, come to my house. I want to host you. Come to my house. Of course, we were very wary. We didn't really want to go to this Arab guy's house. And he told us, you don't understand. My house is a veritable Beit Chabad. It's a veritable Chabad house. You won't believe it. So somehow they believed him and they went with him to his house. Outside his house, there's a huge Mashiach flag. He opens the door. There's a gigantic picture of the Rebbe in his house. And next to it, there's a big poster explaining the 7 Noahide laws, the 7 laws for all the world, for the non-Jews, the seven laws that are outlined in the Torah for non-Jews. And they were like, whoa, this is amazing. And the hitchhiker said to the driver, the Rebbe must be Mashiach. If he convinces this Arab that he's Mashiach, the Rebbe's got to be Mashiach. Anyway, so let's go back to where we are. Rabbi Pashtar, when he was davening in the Chabad house, he said, yeah, that's why I'm in Akko. I want to meet that Arab too. That's why I'm here. So he asked the Chabad rabbi at the Akko Chabad house, he said, I'm going to describe a situation. You tell me if you've ever heard of such an Arab. And the shaliach, the emissary, laughed. He said, you're talking about Captain Sammy. Let me tell you Captain Sammy's story. He said, Captain Sammy, they call him Captain Sammy because he's primarily a fisherman. He has a boat. He's a big fisherman. But he also has on the side, he has a business making curtains. And that's how we met him at the Chabad house, because we needed new curtains. We heard about his business and we called him and he came and he measured. And while he was here, he heard all the people coming and going. He heard a lot of incredible stories about the Rebbe. And, he learned a little bit. And then a while later, after the curtains were already made, there was a toxic dump, some accident near Akko, and it ruined the fishing industry. It just ruined the fishing industry. Even after they cleaned up the dump, the toxic dump, the fish were not coming back. And Sammy's business was ruined. I mean, he didn't make so much from the curtains. He made a lot from the fishing. And so he called the Chabad rabbi in Akko, and he said, I heard all those stories about the Lubavitcher Rebbe and how he helps people with blessings. He said, do you think I could come and I could write a letter to the Rebbe and I could get a blessing for my fishing business because it's kaput? He didn't use the word kaput. He said, it's kaput. And the shaliach said, if you promise the Rebbe that you're going to keep the 7 Noahide laws and that you're going to tell your friends to keep the 7 Noahide laws, I think you should write such a letter. I think that would be because when you write a letter to the Rebbe, you usually give a present to Hashem, something that Hashem would like. So he said, try it. Come, we'll try it. So Sammy came to the Chabad house. The letter was written. He promised to do the 7 mitzvahs, and he promised to teach his friends the 7 mitzvahs. And 2 days later, not a month later, 2 days later, the rabbi gets a frantic call from Sammy. He said, you have to come to the wharf right now. You have to come. You have to come. He said, I caught 7 tons of fish. In my life, I never caught 7 tons of fish, not even in the best fishing times, not even in any time, nothing like this. He said, and I could have caught much more. I could have sent my nets out and reeled in, and he caught expensive, good fish. And he said, this has never happened to me before. If I could have caught much more, but I was afraid my boat would sink. It would be too heavy. I was afraid my boat would sink. So anyway, since then, Captain Sammy has brought a bunch of Arabs to the Chabad house in Akko, and these Arabs have written to the Rebbe. They've taken on things like keeping the 7 laws, and they have had a number of miracles. And not only
Isn't that amazing?
Not only that, there's a lot of inter-clan warfare among the Arabs in Akko. And a lot of that has settled down and calmed down thanks to the brachas of Lubavitcher Rebbe. And thanks to the letters that they wrote. So the Shaliach from France said, whoa, this guy's amazing. And the Shaliach in Akko said, you want to talk to him on the phone? So he called up Sammy. He said, Sammy, I have a Chabad rabbi from France who wants to speak to you. So he gave the phone to Rabbi Pashtar, and he explained Rabbi Pashtar explained to Sammy, I'm an emissary of the Rebbe in France, and Sammy said, what are you doing in France? You should be in Israel. You're a Jew. And then he said, well, I have to be there because I'm an emissary of the Rebbe, and it's my job to tell Jews there, to teach them and do things for them. And Sammy said, you're obviously not doing a very good job, because if you had done your job well, then all the Jews in the world, at least in your area, would have come here already, and they would have recognized that the Rebbe is Mashiach. So anyway, that's today's story.
It's quite a story.
And the Shliach said he was very embarrassed by this Arab who has as much, if not more, faith than he does. So that's the story for today.
That's uplifting in these times when you hear all the other negativity and things.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.